Hi, welcome to my podcast, Learn a Multi-Language with Eureka. Today's topic is on the period punctuation mark. In English, in Chinese, and Japanese, these three languages have vastly different ways of pronouncing and communicating what the period punctuation mark, or noun, means. So let's get right into it. Since there are lots of variations, it's important to know the difference between each one. Overall, there are 5 of them that I'm going to present in this video. The first one in English is point. This is usually a decimal point, used in mathematics or numbers. In Japanese, this is pronounced ten. In Chinese, it's pronounced dian. The characters for these two languages are the same, and they also sound very similar. An example of this is the numbers of pi. 3.1415926, etc. The next type is the period. In Japanese, this is pronounced kuten. It can also be used in replacement of a question mark. It is used as a replacement when the word ka is before the period. An example of this is genki desu ka? Although it is formatted as a question, the ending punctuation mark is still a period. So in Chinese, the pronunciation would be 句号 or 问号. And in English, this is a period or question mark. An example of this is the Obama period. In a lot of Obama's speeches, he says period at the end of his sentences to emphasize the point that he's making. The third example is when people use it in web addresses. In Japanese, this is pronounced dotto. In Chinese, this is pronounced dian. And in English, this is pronounced dot. The Japanese pronunciation is katakana, which means that it is adapted from English. Thus, you can hear that it is very similar between the two languages. An example of this is the web address of my website, which is learnml.me. The fourth example is point, in the context of earning rewards. In Japanese, this is pronounced pointo. In Chinese, this is pronounced 攒积分, and in English, this is pronounced earn rewards. An example of this is when you have a point card from some kind of company or business, where they encourage you to buy more stuff so that more points get accumulated, and you can trade in those points for other things. The last example is pointing finger or index finger. In Japanese, this is 人差し指. In Chinese, this is 食指. And in English, it's pointing finger or index finger. The implications of this gesture varies widely across cultures. For example, in English, you would probably see at least 10 people point to something else if you walked down the street. In Japanese, if you saw somebody pointing at another person, it would be regarded as extremely offensive. You usually never really want to do this in Japan, unless it is probably maybe a boss that is reprimanding his coworkers or subordinates. In that case, the subordinates might quit their jobs because they're so offended. With so many variations of one thing in the language, which is the period or the point, it is important to know the difference between each of the examples that I have given today. Once you get familiar with these, you can get your Japanese to the next level. Thanks for listening to today's episode. Hope to see you in the next one. Find me on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, and on my website. Thanks for listening.